For some people, there's definitely a hereditary tendency. Most depression is not hereditary, but there is definitely tendencies, and there are specific types of mental disease that do run in families, and this has been shown in a number of ways. And one of the ways they've done it is they've done twin studies where they've looked at twins. Identical twins who've been separated at birth, and then they've picked them back up again as adults, and they found that there's an increased likelihood of identical twins picking up certain mental diseases, including depression, particularly things like manic depression and the more serious disorders like schizophrenia, than would be expected if they were, completely unrelated people in different communities. So there is definitely a genetic tendency for some, but it's not the whole story.
What's the difference between manic depression and depression then?
Manic depression is what people call bipolar, and bipolar tends to exist as two separate forms where you're up or you're down, basically. And when people are up, they are high as a kite and they make some very irrational decisions. They don't sleep, they're on the go all the time, they spend money, and then in between times they can be very, very low and have deep depressions. And the true bipolar disorder, which is what we sort of euphemistically call manic depression, is just that, episodes of being up and episodes of being down.
What about the people who are living with people with depression? How does it affect the families and friends and relatives? Depression
is a depressing illness, and it's not unusual to find that the families of depressives become depressed themselves, because it does put a lot of strain on families. It isn't easy to deal with somebody who never laughs, who never smiles, who sees everything in the world as being very black and depressing, whose glass is always half empty. Eventually, that situation can drag people down, and it is not unusual to see, a couple, husband and wife, where one becomes depressed, and after months or maybe years of dealing with that, their nearest and dearest goes down as well.
And another kind of family event when you hear about depression is during, but more commonly after pregnancy, postnatal depression. What's happening in that situation?
I think we're more aware of postnatal depression. Postnatal depression occurs for a couple of reasons, really. One is the incredible hormonal changes that occur when you deliver a baby. And the other one, I think, is the situational change. If you imagine a pregnant woman is the centre of attention, everybody wants to feel your tummy and listen to the baby's heartbeat and discuss whether it's a boy or a girl or what the baby's going to be called. And then the baby's born, and suddenly the baby's the centre of attention, not the mother. People are interested in the baby, they're not so interested in the mother. And the mother may be going through all the hormonal changes and trying to cope with a baby that perhaps doesn't sleep at night, who won't feed properly, the anxiety of whether or not the baby's well or not. And it's not surprising that in situations like that, depression occurs. Because it is so common, we are alert to it, and we do screen for it, and we do have questionnaires that community midwives and health visitors will actually administer to new mums to try and spot them before things get too bad.
Can you spot them without a questionnaire? If you had, I know you have the weighing centres and things like that. Can you see when the mums come in? You can have a good idea of which mum is actually struggling and finding this hard, and which mum is actually going to pull through and be okay without a diagnosis of postnatal depression?
You can, and things like the way people walk, do they stand up straight, are they looking at the floor, what's their facial expression like, have they bothered to do their hair today, things like that are all clues to whether or not somebody's depressed. But there are people who naturally go through life looking sad, looking at their feet, and who never bother to brush their hair, who are never depressed. So it's not an infallible form of diagnosis.
Well, and you could also have the form of somebody saying, right, I'm definitely going to do my makeup this morning because I don't want them finding out that I'm not coping.
Yeah. And that happens too. Young mums feel that they should cope, and they feel that there's some sort of weakness if they can't cope with being a mother, and they're failing in their maternal duties, and so they will try and hide it and conceal it, and that can be quite dangerous.
So most importantly, where should people go for help? If anybody listening to this is thinking, actually, that sounds a bit familiar, I think I might be in that sort of situation myself, where can people go for help?
I think your first port of call is almost always going to be your GP, and the GP will lead you into other services. If you find it difficult to talk to your GP for one reason or another, there's often somebody else in the practice who will help, and sometimes the practice nurses can help. Obviously, if you're a new mum, your community midwife or your health visitor can help. But it's important that if you are suffering, you do tell somebody and you go and get some help.